Okay, Okay, I think we can start. Floral bud. Axillary budor position to লৈ পেলাই ডিপেন্ড কৰিব ন আৰু ঠিক তেনেকৈ লিভছো সব বাদ যেটো ফ্লাৱাৰ্সে ফৰ্ম নকৰে ন লিফো ফৰ্ম কৰে অকল বাদ বুলি ক'লে যে বাদটো ফ্লাৱাৰে হৈ যাব নট নেসেসাৰি ন বাদটো লিফো হৈ যাব পাৰে ন উই হ্যাভ টকড अबाउट ভেজিটেটিভ বাডস আৰু ৰিপ্ৰডাক্টিভ বাডস ৰাইট সো তেনেকৈ ডিপেন্ডিং অন দা পজিশন টাৰ্মিনেল হ'ব নহলে এক্সিলাৰি হ'ব right okay I think we can start the class now. Okay, last class what we were talking about was something called as shoot apex organization. Yeah, shoot apex organization we were talking about when we start with the word tissues broadly divided into meristematic and permanent. Classification of meristematic tissues we have already done. When we talk about meristematic tissues mainly they are found or they are confined to the apex. Which apex to be precise, it is the root apex, right? And talking about what are the cells that are present in the apex, we have talked about something called as the apical cell. As far as the number of apical cell is concerned, depending on plants to plants is different, right? Kisuman plants are matra eta apical cell thake, kisuman apical cell nathake. If apical cell is not present, then the plants will undergo a dash type of a growth. What type of a growth? Diffuse growth, right? It will grow from all sides. Or jodi apical cell thake, it will always grow by its apex. That is the most common characteristic in case of majority of the plants, right? Talking about apical cells, talking about the number, shape, we have talked about pyramidal and tetrahedral, right? And the next part that we have studied was something called a shoot apex organization. Various scientists from time to time they have started explaining as to how does the shoot apex look like. We had discussed theories like apical cell theory, tunica corpus and the histogen theory. What is important from those points is we have to talk about who has proposed the specific theories and it is valid for what. Root apex bhalke bujabo parise ne shoot apex bhalke bujabo parise no. We have talked about especially mainly important kuntu tunica corpus or histogen. Histogen theory what we know it's most valid for roots. How many histogens are there in commonly how many histogens are there? 3 histogens. The 3 different layers of cells or the different histogens form different types of tissues. Jeneke dermatogen asil na calyptrogen asil sorry dermatogen asil plerome asile aru peribleum asile or the sequence is wrong dermatogen peribleum plerome asile. Okay, in case of monocots, we see the presence of the 4th histogen that is called as calyptrogen. Calyptrogen ki form kore root cap form kore, right? Jedi calyptrogen na thake tetahole root cap kore form kore dermatogen form kore. Epidermis gene form kore, right? Hekin loke ami porhilo apical cell tunica corpus. According to tunica corpus what we know that it best explains the organization of the shoot or the shoot apex, right? And according to that theory the shoot apex consists of 2 layers, that is the tunica and the corpus. Tunica ki form kore epidermis and corpus ki kore rest of the cells including the ground tissue system and the vascular tissue systems, right? So hekin loke porhilo aji a little bit more about root apex. We need to know something about the root apex. He kita specific theory kita more concerned with the shoot. Apart from histogen, no, apical cell theory shootok describe korise, right? Basic precisely shootok describe korise. If you are talking about tunica corpus also shootok discuss korise. So root apex organization of one specific point, especially if you have read, I think you all have come across a word called as quiescent center. Root apex ot ki thake centermost portion ot kisuman cells inactive form ot thaki jay storage, right? So apex to ase apex to ekdom centermost portion ot kisuman centermost boli noko aru centermost to obviously vascular bundles thake ba pith thaki ba that's different, right? Kintu in that inner side of the root কিছুমান সেলস থাকে সেই সেলস বিলাক ডিভাইড নকৰে সেই সেলস খিনি কালেকশন টু আমি কি বুলি কওঁ কুইসেন সেন্টাৰ right and these cells becomes active whenever the necessary arises. What is the type of necessary we are talking about? Suppose a root gets injured, it needs to replace by certain cells. তেতিয়ালে কুইসেন সেন্টাৰৰ cells বিলাকে ডিভাইড কৰি পেলাই সেই ইনজুৰিটো হিল আপ কৰি দিব right so এই কুইসেন সেন্টাৰটো জানিব লাগিব so লিখাচোন root apex organization লিখা নহয় এপিকেল মেৰিষ্টেম মেইন টপিক সেইটো কৰিছা ন হ'ব তাৰ পৰা আহিলে হ'ল কাৰণ এপিকেল মেৰিষ্টেমটো ক'ত থাকিব ৰুটতো থাকিব শ্বুটতো থাকিব So these are the points about the root apex. The first point, it consists a mass of meristematic cells. It's understood. We have already discussed the zone of a root, right? There are 4 zones of a root, and when we talk of zones, eta zone of ki boli koisilo meristematic zone. So obviously meristematic cells present. Next, the second point, root apex is not responsible for the formation of lateral roots. Lateral roots or kotha ki, what is the specific point that you remember? We have already discussed during a morphology class. Lateral roots mane the main root tar jon bilak branches hoy eto lateral roots. Lateral roots arises from answer to kor pora dibo lagibo. First so you have to know the two words endogenous ne exogenous. Remember we have talked about the differences between a stem and a root in morphology, right? So stem also has branches, roots also has branches, but we have used two words endogenous in origin or exogenous in origin. So roots are কোনটো হ'ব এন্ডোজিনাস হ'ব নে এক্সোজিনাস হ'ব endogenous হ'ব, and that's the reason why it's very hard to break off the branches of a root as compared to the branches of a stem, right? So endogenous in origin means what? It arises from inside, and when we talk about inside, root error inside ot ki ase? Obviously tissues ase. What is the arrangement of the tissues? ECEP, right? So endogenous বুলি ক'লে apart from epidermis বাকি গোটেইবিলাক cells আমি বা tissues আমি endogenous বুলি ক'ব পাৰিম বা inside বুলি ক'ব পাৰিম. You have to know precisely কোনটো cellৰ পৰা lateral roots arise কৰে. Epidermis of part obviously নকৰে. Epidermis of part যদি কৰে, it would have been exogenous in origin, right? So apart from epidermis, below the epidermis কি আছে? Cortex. Cortex of পিছত কি আছে? Endodermis. Endodermis of পিছত কি আছে? Pericycle. So you have to choose among these words, right? So lateral roots co-arise for a very, very important point from morphology point of view, and now also we have, written this point. It always arises from the pericycle, right? So এইখিনি যদি মনত নাই সাইডত ক'বাত লিখি থৈ দিয়া, lateral roots arises from the pericycle. ইমান ভিতৰৰ পৰা ওলাই সেইকাৰণে ভাঙিবলৈ দিগদাৰি, right? And pericycle বুলিও actually ক'লে pericycle কি হয়? It's a layer of cells, right? So you have to be precise which cell of the layer give rise to lateral roots. আমি অলপ পিছত পঢ়িম, right? The cell that is opposite to the protoxylem gives a rise to the lateral roots. What is protoxylem? What is metaxylem? আমি কৰিম অলপ পিছত, and at that time we will be more precise as to what is the point of origin of the lateral roots. কিন্তু maximum question has been asked about the general point, right? Lateral roots arises from pericycle, right? Now, as far as the root apex organization or structure is concerned, no, jeneke shoot apex bujabole jaote many theories has been proposed. Similarly, in case of root apex also many theories has been proposed, but that is all a part of the course. So we won't study, just we'll have to talk about one thing that is called as a quiescent center theory. Right? What did the quiescent center talk about? It said that root apex or এনেকুৱা এটা region আছে য'ত নেকি cells বিলাক just তাত accumulate হৈ থাকে inactive formত, মানে divide কৰি নাথাকে. So কেতিয়া divide কৰিব? যেতিয়া necessity আহিব. So that is what is called as a quiescent center. So এইখিনি হ'ল. Next লিখা quiescent center theory. In position, root আছে, right? Root cap আছে, এইটো root আছে, root cap নাই, ঠিক আছে? যদি root cap নাই, এই জোনটোক চাৰিটা জোন আছিলে, lower জোনটোক কি কৈছিল? root cap area, তাৰ ওপৰটোত কি আছিলে? Meristematic. So এইটো rootত root cap নাই, এইটো rootত root cap আছে. তো terminal positionত কি আছে? root cap. ইয়াতো terminal positionত কি আছে? Meristematic. root cap যদি terminal positionত আছে, তেনে এইটো position আমি কি কম? Subterminal, right? Actually, হেগিটা theory shoot apex describe কৰিব যাওঁতে হেগিটা propose কৰিছিলে, কিন্তু তাৰ ভিতৰতে histogen theory is not valid for the shoot apex, and later it was seen it is valid for the root apex. কিন্তু actually propose কাৰ কাৰণে কৰিছিলে? shoot apex ৰ কাৰণে, right? So, what are the points that are important? First, quiescent center theory proposed kune korisile? Clovis. The year not important. Next, coat discover korisile? Maced root. So, second point. Third, quiescent center. What is quiescent center? Inactive cells. Inactive cells or almost the cells that have very low mitotic activity, that is almost considered to be inactive. When do they become active or when do they start dividing? They will start dividing when the root apex gets injured, right? Okay. কারণ দৰকাৰ নাই ন, ডিভাইডে নকৰে ন, তোমাৰ যেতিয়া এটা চেল ডিভাইড কৰিব ন, মেৰিষ্টেমেটিক চেল এটাত কণ্টেণ্টছ বেছিকৈ থাকে কাৰণ ডিভাইড কৰে, ইটো ডিভাইডে নকৰে। I think this part is over. So, this is all about shoot apex, root apex, and ultimately we have come to an end about the discussion on meristematic tissues, right? Now, we will be moving towards the permanent tissues. Over? Okay. কি হল? Complete nahi hua? Likha, figure of or LS of the root apex of allium cepa, ALLIUM, allium CEPA. Cepa showing quiescent center. Quiescent center, bas, that's all. Over? Okay. Next, we have to talk about the permanent tissues. Now, first, whenever we hear the word permanent tissues, we understand we have to talk from two points of view. It consists of what and it arises from. Permanent tissues, permanent boli kiho karne ko, because they stop the power of division in general, but sometimes some permanent tissues also divide. Second, who forms permanent tissues? Permanent tissues kune form kore? Primary meristem, right? So, primary meristematic tissues, we have talked about the different types of meristematic tissues. Primary meristematic tissues would give rise to primary permanent tissues. This, if you are talking about permanent tissues, they could be primary permanent tissues or they could be secondary permanent tissues also. Secondary growth or junbilak associated, tak ami ki boli kom secondary permanent tissues, mane later in the life cycle tahate form koribo. Primary tissues boli koa loge lage, that is present in the primary plant body itself, right? Next, what is the primary what does the permanent tissues consist of? Living cells, dead cells, but only living cells, only dead cells neki. It consists of both living and dead cells, because if we talk about dead cells, Sclerenchyma to ase, so that is a part of a dead cell. So, we will be writing about permanent tissues. That first one likha composed of living or dead cells, dead cells but dead tissues je likha. কোনটো প্ৰাইমেৰী মেৰিষ্টেমটো হ'ল একদম ইনিচিয়েল মেৰিষ্টেমটো ৰাইট একদম ইনিচিয়েল প্লেণ্টডাল এম্ব্ৰায়নিক ফৰ্মৰ পৰা আহি পেলাই যিটো মেৰিষ্টেম প্ৰ' মেৰিষ্টেমৰ পৰা কি ফৰ্ম কৰিব প্ৰাইমেৰী মেৰিষ্টেমৰ সেই যোনখিনি চেলছ ফৰ্ম কৰিলোঁ ন সেই চেলছখিনিতো মেচিয়ৰ্ড হ'ব লাগিব সেই ছিডটোৰ পৰা যে জাৰ্মিনেট কৰিব অকল চেলছৰ এটা কালেকশ্যনটো দেখা নাপাওঁ ন আমিতো প্লেণ্টডাল দেখা পাওঁ চ' প্লেণ্টডাল দেখিব লাগিলে প্লেণ্টৰ পাৰ্টছবিলাক ফৰ্ম কৰিব লাগিলে চেলছবিলাক মেচিয়ৰ্ড হ'ব লাগিব নালাগে তো মেচিয়ৰ্ড হ'ব লাগিলে মানে কোনে মেচিয়ৰ্ড হ'ল মেৰিষ্টেমেটিকেইটো পাৰ্মানেণ্ট হৈ গ'ল ৰাইট আল্টিমেটলি এপিকেল মেৰিষ্টেমে প্ৰথম যোনখিনি প্ৰাইমেৰী গ্ৰ'থ কৰিছে কিন্তু পাৰ্মানেণ্ট টিছুজে হয় এপিকেল মেৰিষ্টেমে আল্টিমেটলি কি ফৰ্ম কৰিলে ৰেডিকেল প্লিউমেল ৰাইট চ' সেই যোনটো তোমাৰ এপিকেল মেৰিষ্টেম বা ইণ্টাৰকেলি বা সেই লিফটো যে ফৰ্ম কৰিলে ইনিচিয়েল ষ্টাৰ্টিং কিহৰ পৰা হৈছে গ্ৰুপ অফ চেলছৰ পৰা সেই গ্ৰুপ অফ চেলছখিনি কি হৈ আছিলে মেৰিষ্টেমেটিক হৈ আছিলে সেই মেৰিষ্টেমেটিকখিনি পাৰ্মানেণ্ট হৈ পেলাই লিফটো ফৰ্ম কৰা নাই জানো তো আল্টিমেটলি সেই পাৰ্মানেণ্ট টিছুটো ক'ৰ পৰা ফৰ্ম কৰিলে এপিকেলৰ পৰা ফৰ্ম কৰিলে নহ'লে ইণ্টাৰকেলৰীৰ পৰা ফৰ্ম কৰিলে তাৰমানে এপেক্সডাল কোনে ফৰ্ম কৰিলে এপিকেলে লিভছবিলাক কোনে ফৰ্ম কৰিলে ইণ্টাৰকেলৰীয়ে বা ইলংগেশ্যন অফ দ্য ষ্টেম কোনে কৰিলে সেই ইণ্টাৰকেলৰীয়ে চ' প্ৰাইমেৰী গ্ৰ'থত যোনখিনি ফৰ্মেশ্যন হয় সেইখিনি সদায় প্ৰাইমেৰী একচুৱেলি চাবলৈ গ'লে অৰিজিনটো কি প্ৰাইমেৰী মেৰিষ্টেমে কি ফৰ্ম কৰিলে প্ৰাইমেৰী পাৰ্মানেণ্টবিলাক এনলাৰ্জ হৈ আল্টিমেটলি আমি প্লেণ্টডাল দেখা পাওঁ কিন্তু লেটাৰ ইন দ্য লাইফ চাইকেল যদি কেম্বিয়াম আছে তেতিয়া যদি ডিভাইড কৰে সেই টিছুজৰ কালেকশ্যনটোক আমি কি বুলি ক'ম ছেকেণ্ডেৰী আৰু সেই ছেকেণ্ডেৰী মেৰিষ্টেম বা কেম্বিয়াম ইজ এন এক্সাম্পল অফ উইচ মেৰিষ্টেম ইজ এন এক্সাম্পল অফ লেটাৰেল মেৰিষ্টেম পিছলৈকে মানে থিকনেছ লেটাৰেল মেৰিষ্টেমে এডাল প্লেণ্টৰ ছেকেণ্ডেৰী গ্ৰ'থ হোৱা মানে তাৰ থিকনেছটো বাঢ়িব লাগিব থিকনেছটো বাঢ়া মানে এইটো ছেকেণ্ডেৰী গ্ৰ'থ ন গাৰ্থ অফ দ্য ষ্টেম ইনক্ৰিজেছ চ' সেই থিকনেছটো বাঢ়িব লাগিলে কিছুমান টিছুজে ডিভাইড কৰিব লাগিব সেই টিছুজখিনি ইজ আ পাৰ্ট অফ হোৱাট লেটাৰেল মেৰিষ্টেম চ' হু ইজ ৰেছপনচিবল ফৰ ছেকেণ্ডেৰী গ্ৰ'থ দ্য লেটাৰেল মেৰিষ্টেম ইজ ৰেছপনচিবল ফৰ ছেকেণ্ডেৰী গ্ৰ'থ কাৰণ ছেকেণ্ডেৰী গ্ৰ'থ হ'লে এপেক্সটো ডাঙৰ হৈ যোৱাটো এপেক্সটো দীঘল হৈ যোৱাটো ছেকেণ্ডেৰী গ্ৰ'থ বুলি আমি নকওঁ নহয় It has to increase in girth and that is what is called as secondary growth. Length of the apex increases, that is not secondary growth. The number of leaves increases or the leaf size increases, that is not secondary growth. Secondary growth ki, only the girth increases. Who is responsible? The lateral meristem. Right? So secondary what to dekhile, you have to understand that it arises from the lateral meristem. Secondary lateral. Right? Karan primary lateral to already planned out asile. কিন্তু জেনেৰেলি আমি যেহেতু ছেকেণ্ডেৰী লেটাৰেলৰ পৰা হয় আমি লেটাৰেলটো ছেকেণ্ডেৰী হিচাপে ৰাখি থৈ দিছোঁ অ'কে অ' য়েছ Okay, talking about the classification of permanent tissues broadly divided into simple tissues and complex tissues, but we have a third classification also or third category also that includes the secretory tissues, right? Broadly divided into two, simple or complex. That does not mean aru eta nai. Aru eta ase, that is secretory. Eta ekhon chart talking about simple and complex. হৈ গ'ল এইখিনি So simple tissues and complex tissues, the basic difference is same type of cell or different types of cells. Same type of cell, same type of function, different types of cells, different type of functions. sorry. Nothing to explain? Understood? Similar structure, similar function, different structure, different function, right? Next is, we will be talking about the different types of simple tissues. So, parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma, ako ekon chart. Okay, এইটো side হল ন? Parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma. দেখিবা। Next আৰু এখন chart বনোৱা। এবাৰ তিনি ভাগত ভাগ কৰি দিয়া। Parenchyma, collenchyma আৰু sclerenchyma. Just divide into 3 columns. We have given an example. If you are talking about xylem tracheids or tracheids, তাহাঁতৰ কাম কি? Water transport. If you are talking about xylem vessels, obviously water transport itself. If you are talking about xylem fibers, what is the function of xylem fiber? Mechanical support. What is the function of xylem parenchyma? Storage. We have not given the functions of all the 4 cells of xylem. Instead, we have written just 2 of them. We know xylem consists of 4 cells, no? Phloem also consists of 4 cells. আৰু গোটেইকেইটা 4টা cell different functions থাকিব সেইকাৰণে তাহাঁতৰ complex tissues কৈছো, right? So we have just given 2 of them. While we will be discussing about vascular bundles, তেতিয়া আমি আৰু precisely পঢ়িম. So simple tissues divided into 3 types. এতিয়া এই চাৰ্টখনৰ পৰা কি question আহে বা এইটো পাৰ্টৰ পৰা কি question আহে, you have to know the points that describe a simple tissue or the points that describe a permanent tissue. Question আহিব পাৰে, point out the characteristics of a permanent tissue, but cells of permanent tissues will have dash dash dash. So permanent tissues describe কৰিব পৰা তাৰ characteristics বোৰ, Sclerenchyma characteristics বোৰ, Sclerenchyma characteristics বোৰ individually আমি পঢ়িব লাগিব, right? এতিয়া আমি কি কৰিম, in the form of a chart দিম. If you want to study parenchyma, just read the parenchyma part. It's not like this that we are comparing. We are writing the informations about the different tissues in the form of a chart. Protective bostu compare kora nai kintu, right? It's not a comparative chart. It is a chart that talks about the different types of tissues. Okay, before discussing these tissues in details, one line or one most important point that you have to remember. Permanent tissues puri kwaloke jeneke ami kon the cells do not divide in general, right? Next, parenchyma tissues puri kwaloke lage ba gutei kita kwaloke lage, what is most important is the function, right? Whenever you hear the word parenchyma, whatever type of parenchyma might be, parenchyma bahut types of thake, right? Modified parenchyma is something also we have. I think you have heard certain things called as Sclerenchyma, or you have heard a word called as Parenchyma, Sclerenchyma, right? Parenchyma. So ebla ki hoy modified, kintu normal jetia parenchyma thakibo tar upor modified word to ami ketia use korim jeta extra kam koribo, right? Okay, the first function, talking about function, parenchyma most important function ki storage. As far as storage is concerned, what type of storage ki store kore? Eta cell of storage function is responsible for parenchyma. Parenchyma universal tissues almost sobote pai, right? Store kore, ki store kore? Yeah, it's food, but not only food, but ergastric substances also, ba waste products also, বা water also, right? যিকোনো ধৰণৰ storage টোক আমি কাক associate কৰিম, parenchyma. এতিয়া for example aloe vera বা any succulent plant, if you break that you see the gel, right? সেই gel টো ক'বাত store হৈ আছিলে, so store ক'ত হৈ আছিলে, storage word টো শুনিলে parenchyma tissues ক'ম, clear? Okay, next coming to Sclerenchyma. Sclerenchyma functions ki, first the living ne dead we have already, I think we have already said, no, right? Living tissues, Sclerenchyma function ki mechanical support, right? Living mechanical tissues boli ami Sclerenchyma ko, dead mechanical tissues Sclerenchyma ko, right? So Sclerenchyma most important function, mechanical support and elasticity, so that the petioles does not break down during wind or something like that, right? And coming to Sclerenchyma obviously ki hobo mechanical support, and the next important word is dead. Sclerenchyma, another important points, the cells of Sclerenchyma will always show certain types of deposition, right? Kisman bostu Sclerenchyma cells bilakor bhitorot deposition hoi jay. Deposition kot hobo, according to that the different types of Sclerenchyma are present. If suppose the deposition are present in a specific angle of a cell, then it is called as angular, right? Tangential wallot ase jodi tar naam to beleg hobo, intercellular space of jodi deposition hose tar naam to beleg hobo, right? What you need to remember, deposition word to kuntu cellor logot associated Sclerenchyma, আর deposition of karone Sclerenchyma kiman types of 3 types of, right? Universal tissue. cellulose থাকিব specific so যেহেতু cell wall কথা কৈছো ন plant cellত তো cell wallত obviously cellulose থাকিবই ন কিন্তু কথাটো হ'ল apart from cellulose hemicellulose cellulose থাকিব কিন্তু what is that specific thing that is present in a specific cell right parenchymat কোনো ধৰণৰ lignin deposition বা pectin deposition এবিলাক নহয় ঠিক আছে কিন্তু collenchymat pectin deposition very important sclerenchymat lignin deposition very important question ahe sclerenchymat ki deposition dekha pao lignin you cannot be writing pectin at that time right but since it's a cell wall it's a plant cell the plant cell or cell wall to sobe thakibo cellulose is common to each and every cell question has been asked about loosely packed tightly packed right so jungita underline koriso ira saba and lignin deposition you have to remember Casparian stripes also right Casparian stripes I think you remember endodermis okay talking about living or dead we know parenchyma collenchyma are type of living tissues right even talking about sclerenchyma in general ami dead tissues boli consider koro but we have to talk about if you are just differentiating between young sclerenchyma and mature sclerenchyma young sclerenchyma living mature sclerenchyma dead howa karone ki hobo lagibo প্ৰথমতে যেতিয়া ইয়াং আছিলে তেটো লিভিংয়ে আছিলে পিছতহে ডেড হৈ গ'ল ডেড কিয় কাৰণে হ'ল কাৰণ তাত লিগনিন ডিপজিশ্যন হৈ পেলাই প্ৰটোপ্লাজমখিনি নাইকিয়া হৈ গ'ল ৰাইট এটা সেল জন্মৰ পৰা ডেড হ'ব নোৱাৰে নহয় হয় নহয় সো ইয়াং ষ্টেজত হি লিভিং আছিলে সেই সেলটো যে ডিপজিশ্যন হ'বলৈ আৰম্ভ কৰিলে গ্ৰেজুৱেলি ডেড হৈ গ'ল ৰাইট সো উই ইউজ দ্য ৱৰ্ড মেচিউৰ্ড চেলছ আৰ ডেড So certain points of comparison between parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. Next, we have to talk about some other points about the tissues. If this is over, modified parenchyma boli heading koriba. We have certain parenchyma tissues that do some other function than storage. Those are called as modified parenchyma and they have different names for them. Ekhini likhi pala modified parenchyma heading koriba. Jeneke one type of a modified parenchyma over likha aso. Okay, idioblast cells, understood? The parenchyma cells that stores waste products, right? Those are called as ergastic substance. Ergastic substance mane ebilakok ergastic substance koy. Ergastic substance jumlak cells of deposit hoy tak ami ki boli kom idioblast. Idioblast ki hoy? A type of parenchyma itself. Aru collenchyma elasticity word to janibo lagibo. So Prosenchyma is called as a modified parenchyma কিহৰ কাৰণে? Apart from storage, they also provide support. Right? Lysogenous, no? Intercellular space বা space কেনেকৈ form কৰে? Seisogenous, lysogenous and schizolysogenous, no? সেইটো. কোনটো? Lysogenous intercellular space আমি চিটা ডিসকাস কৰিছিলো সেলত কি হল তাৰপিছত সেল পঢ়িছিলো সেলত সেল ওয়াল পঢ়িছিলো সেল ওয়াল বা within two cells are compactly arranged no কিন্তু সেলসৰ মাজতে intercellular space থাকে তো intercellular space কেনেকৈ ফৰ্ম কৰে according to the formation they are of three types no intercellular spaces lysogenous schizogenous আৰু schizolysogenous so schizogenous lysogenous lysi is very easy to remember because lysi has come from the word lysis right so cell wall বা middle layer to কি হয় lysis হৈ যায় আৰু তাৰপিছত তাহাঁতে separate হৈ যায় আৰু parenchyma ক'লে hydrophytes and buoyancy So it's like if you are talking about modification of parenchyma, these are the different modifications. So we have talked about points about parenchyma, the characteristics of a parenchyma cell and certain types of modification of parenchyma. The next is we have to talk about some extra points about collenchyma. So heading koriba collenchyma. Mane types of collenchyma kini ami discuss kori. Modification of we have not put the word idioblast kiho karne idioblast cells bilak modified parenchyma ne normal parenchyma নৰ্মেল পেৰেনকাইমা কাৰণ ইডিঅ'ব্লাষ্ট কি কৰে ষ্ট'ৰহে কৰে চ' ষ্ট'ৰ কৰিলে তাক আমি কি বুলি ক'ম পেৰেনকাইমা ইটছেল্ফ বাট এপাৰ্ট ফ্ৰম ষ্ট'ৰেজ ইফ দে গ' ফৰ ছাপৰ্ট এণ্ড বুয়েঞ্চি এটচেট্ৰা তেতিয়া আমি তাক কি ক'ম মডিফাই I think it's over. हाँ लिखी लो So talking about deposition, the first point lignin deposition, pectin deposition, pectin deposition. Deposition kot hoise accordingly they are of three types: angles, angular, tangential walls, tangential by lamellar, and if it is in the intercellular spaces it is called as lacunar or lacunate collenchyma. So this is all about collenchyma. Next, sclerenchyma heading koriba. Right now. Finished. কিহৰ ডিপজিশ্যন কোলেনকাইমাত যিহৰ ডিপজিশ্যন থাকে পেক্টিন ডিপজিশ্যন ৰাইট in the cells of the tissues ha oh তাহাঁতৰ ইণ্টাৰচেলুলাৰ স্পেচটো ডাঙৰ কাৰণেতো ডিপজিশ্যন তাতে হৈ যায় বুজি পাইছা আল্টিমেটলি বস্তুটো নাইকিয়া হৈ যাব কাৰণ তাত কম্পেক্ট হৈ যাব ন টেনজেন্ট মানে সেই সাৰ্কেলৰ যোনটো টেনজেন্ট থকা তোমালোকে হা 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 অঁ ন চোৱা চেলিউলোজ চেল ৱলটো এটা চেল কি চেল কোলেনকাইমা হওক পেৰেনকাইমা হওক এইবিলাকতো প্লেন চেলেই হ'ল চ' প্লেন চেলত ডিপজিশ্যন আমি ক'ত পাওঁ চেল ৱলতে মেক্সিমাম ডিপজিশ্যন পাওঁ তো চেল ৱল বুলি ক'লে প্লেন চেলৰ চেল ৱলততো চেলিউলোজ থাকিবই হেমিচেলিউলোজো থাকিব এক্সট্ৰা কোনটো ইম্পৰ্টেণ্ট আছে আমি ষ্ট্ৰেছ সেইটোতে দিছোঁ ৰাইট চ' চেলিউলোজ হেমিচেলিউলোজ থাকিবই তাৰ ওপৰতে ইয়াতে কি থাকিব পেক্টিন থাকিব আৰু স্ক্লেৰেনকাইমাত কি থাকিব লিগনিন থাকিব এইখিনি হ'ল স্ক্লেৰেজাৰ ফাইবাৰ্ছ চাৰ্ট লিখাচোন Okay, now talking about the tissues, parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. Parenchyma, collenchyma we have discussed. Sclerenchyma boli kole, what is the type of, or what is the word that you remember? Fiber, right? So sclerenchyma cells like kenekwa dekhat fiber or nisna. Fiber hobole gele ki hobole ibo elongated, right? Elongated hobole ibo, and plus if fiber kwa loke the another word that associates it's hard. Right, not necessarily soap fibers are hard thake. I think I have said about cotton fiber, no, jintu niki hard nohoy as compared to the jute fiber, right? So fibers boli kole ki hobo, elongated boli kole hard hobo. Eta cell hard ketia hobo jetia tat depositions thakibo, right? So lumen, coming to the first point, small thick wall we understand. Fibers are a point to important, longest in the plant, the cell that is longest in the plant kingdom. Which cell is the longest? The fiber is the longest cell, right? Next is, what is the difference between sclerates and fibers? Duitai to sclerenchyma hoy, right? There should be some difference. By looking at the cell itself, you need to identify whether that's a scleride or it's a fiber. What is the difference? Normally sclerenchyma ki kom fiber hole ki hobo elongated cell eta kenukwa dekhat, something like this, right? Etu ki thakibo, pointed ends, etu eta pointed ends. Kintu sclerate is also a sclerenchyma, but it does not have a pointed end. Depending on how does a sclerate look like, different types of sclerates will have different shapes. For example, some might be circular. Have you heard a word called as brachysclerites? A question that is often asked about guava, the grit of guava. A question to be like guava ba naspoti. That ki ho naspoti hok ba madhuriam hok, guava is madhuriam baru. Ha, hebilak bostu kamurute tight lage na lage. So tight ki ho karone, karon cells are tight. So which cells? Sclerenchyma, kintu kuntu sclerenchyma? It's sclerates, right? Hebilak ami porhim next class on. So depending on the types or where they are present, accordingly, or depending on the shapes, sclerates could be of different type. Brachysclerites, gulor nisna. We have a word that is called as ostosclerite. Osto word to kunile ami ki janu, bone. Right? So it's almost like enuka dhoroner shape hobo pare. Fibers are etai shape elongated, right? Elongated hobo lagile tahantor pointed ends thakibo lagibo. The sclerenchyma that does not have a pointed end is called as, it's called as sclerates. Understood? Ha. Overall fibers boli kole sclerenchyma hoy, kone fiber form kore, sclerenchyma form kore. Oh, xylem to fiber, xylem tissues of fiber ase, he fiber to kune form korise, deposition hoise, ultimately sclerenchyma dead tissue hobo no, right? So okay, I think that, okay, we have a word called as obliterated lumen. What is lumen? The inside portion is called as lumen. Obliterated mane not well defined but not a proper shape. Tamane if you consider a plastic bottle, no, bottle to jodi hatere crush kori dia ki hobo, beka seka hobo noy, that is what is called as obliterated. Understood? Okay, they have a obliterated lumen, they have a reduced lumen or almost absent because deposition is to thakibo. Contain speed. Okay, talking about fibers of sclerenchyma are obviously dead, but we have an example of a living fiber, that is tamarix, one and only example, and fibers are present in. Okay, I think this is all for today. In the next class we will be discussing the classification of sclerates and classification of fibers. Thank you.